Hey guys, today we're going to be working with Solver in Excel. Now this is a really important tool if you're into engineering, operations research, production, management, stuff like that. However, a lot of people find it really complicated and intimidating at a first glance. So we're going to show you how it's really simple to use and how it's all just about how you set up the problem. On this first video about Solver, we're going to be working with just a very simple problem. It's about production and manufacturing. And I hope you'll understand. I mean, it's really simple to understand once you get the gist of it. All right, so let's get to it. All right, guys, let's get started. As I mentioned in the introduction, Solver is really simple to use, but the hard part is getting the problem set up. All right, so most of the stuff that we're going to be doing is working with this data right here. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that Solver is activated. In order to do that, you have to head over to the Data tab, and you should have Solver right here. I don't have Solver, so I'm going to show you step by step how to open it. If you do have it, then just ignore what I'm going to do right now. You head over to File, and then you head over to Options, and then once you're here in Options, you head over to Add-ins, all right? Add-ins. Now, check it out. Right down here where it says Manage, you have a drop-down list, and you make sure that you select Excel Add-ins, all right? That's important. A lot of people confuse them with COM add-ins. No, it's Excel add-ins. Go over to Go, and you'll get this little window over here, all right? Now, check it out. We have the Solver add-in. Just make sure that the little checkbox is on, and that's it. All right, press OK. And it should take a little while, but Solver should load right here in its own little box called Analyze. This applies whether you have Excel 2007 or Excel 2019. It's the exact same thing. All right, guys? So there we go. We have Solver set up. Now, if I click on the Solver window, I'll get this. All right, and it might look pretty confusing at first, but we'll get to it in a little bit. So I'm going to close it right now and head over to our problem. Now, as I said in the introduction, Solver is used for optimization problems, mostly, all right? Or pretty much exclusively for optimization problems. So if you're not an industrial engineer, you're not in charge of manufacturing processes or stuff like that, it's not really that useful. But for engineering students, Solver is a godsend. So how does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to illustrate it using this example. Right here it says, a manufacturing company plans to sell two products, widgets and thingamajigs, right? And it's going to be sold at the following prices. Widgets are going to go for $350, and it's going to cost us $290 to produce, all right? So that's important information. We should start writing it down. Widgets and thingamajigs. All right, so widgets, its sales price is going to be $350, and its cost is going to be $290. And for thingamajigs, the sales price is going to be $500, and the production cost is going to be $400. All right. Now, at a simple glance, we already know something really important here. Thingamajigs are a better sales effort. All right, because let's calculate the profit. If you sell a widget, then you are going to get $60 in profit. And if you sell a thingamajig, you're going to get $100 in profit. So it's better for you to just dedicate yourself to selling thingamajigs. However, this does not take into account how much time it takes to produce a widget and how much time it takes to produce a thingamajig, all right? But just in sales margin, if you wanted to optimize for profit, just produce thingamajigs, forget about the widgets. However, there are several constraints here that are not going to allow us to just go ahead and do that. All right. We can only sell at most 700 thingamajigs, all right, a month. So there's your first constraint. And secondly, we have to sell at least 200 widgets because of a pre-existing contract we have to fulfill, all right? So we have to take that into account. Now, this is where a lot of my students struggle when they're setting up their optimization problem. They can calculate sales price, cost, and profit pretty simply because that's that's pretty much self-explanatory. But laying out the rest of the problem, well, that's pretty much up to you, all right? So there's several ways to go about this. Since something that we're going to have to produce is, something that we're going to have to take into consideration is how many of each we produce, then we have to write it down somewhere, all right? So I'm going to write it down here. Units produced, all right? Now, I'm going to type it down as 1 and 1, all right? We're just going to produce one widget and one thingamajig. Why am I not going to do anything else? Because Solver is going to take care of that for me. Solver is a tool that I'm going to use to figure out what the actual units produced are going to be. Oh, and for those of you that are wondering, assume that for every unit we produced, it gets sold, all right? I don't care how, but it gets sold somehow. All right, guys. Now, let's calculate then the total cost and the total profit. All right? So the total cost is going to be the cost of the widget times how many widgets we produced. And the total profit is going to be the profit of the widget times how many widgets we produce. And it's going to be the same thing for the thingamajigs, right? So I'm just going to grab my formulas and drag them down here. And there we go. Since we're only producing one of each, then we get the same cost and the same profit as for individual data, all right? Now, we have our constraints here. And this is really, I mean, there's no simple way to write them. It's pretty much up to you how you're going to type them down in Excel. The first thing that it says is that we can sell at most 700 thingamajigs at month, all right? So I'm going to type in here constraints. I'm going to type in here a 700, all right? The important part here is that we put the number in one cell and then in another cell we describe this. So 700 upper limit of production. All right, it also says that we have to sell at least 200 widgets. So here we go, 200 widgets, 200 lower limit of production, all right? Why? We already have pre-existing contracts. We have to sell these low margin widgets. And we probably have some sort of manufacturing limitation that only allows us to produce up to 700 of thingamajigs. Now, here's another important constraint. The production cost cannot be greater than $120,000, all right? So, this is probably, I mean, this is a real simple solver problem, but this little sentence over here is the one that trips up my students, all right? This is not an independent variable. What do I mean by that? I can't just go ahead and type in $120,000 and say this is the upper limit of production costs. Okay, I can't do that. Well, I could do that. I just did it. But the reason I can't do that is because this $120,000 should be the result of the total cost of production. If I somehow figure out a way, say for example, of producing 800 widgets, notice how my total cost now shot up to $232,000, and it's above this. And once I add up the 400 thingamajigs, then, well, I'm still over that. So, this is the important part. This constraint is not an independent variable, then we shouldn't treat it as such. What we should do instead is add up my total costs. Say, for example, this one plus this one, and it's right now going to give me 690. And then somehow type in here that total cost must not exceed $120,000, all right? So I'm going to make sure that my total cost does not exceed $120,000. Now, this setup is for the benefit of us humans, all right? Solver manages a different language, but once we have the setup right here and we know that the model is useful, say for example, I can produce 50 widgets and 100 thingamajigs. Now that we know that the model is useful and can vary, then I can get to Solver. However, I have one less constraint or one less item I have to figure out, which is how can you optimize production to maximize profits, all right? How can you maximize profits? Well, for starters, I need to figure out what my total profit is going to be. So this is really important as well. My students also trip up here. They totally forget. They're too busy doing optimization or setting up the optimization for a problem, and they totally forget that they have to add up the total profit. So it's 60 plus 100, and we get $160 in profit if we were to just produce one of each. All right, now let's go to where the magic happens. All right, guys, we're going to open Solver. Okay, so this is how Solver looks like when it's empty. All right, this is what you should be looking at. So the first thing that Solver is going to ask of us is to set up the objective, all right? And that is pretty much the cell where the number that we're trying to optimize is. In this instance, we're trying to maximize total profit. So the cell where we have the total profit is right here, all right? Now, we're going to maximize it. So that's what we're going to choose. It's already set up by default, all right? We can also minimize and have it reach a certain value that we specify, but then that's not the point right now. All right, by changing the following variable cells, which cells are going to be changed in order to make sure that the profit is optimized? Well, it's pretty simple. Go over here to units produced and select these two cells. Units produced is the only thing that we have control over, all right? It's the only thing that we can change. So these two are the ones that are going to be changing, and this is where it's going to find how many widgets, how many thingamajigs, all right? And now subject to the following constraints. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click Add, and it's going to open up this new window right here. And this window is the one that's going to tell me, all right, this has to be greater than this or stuff like that, all right? So check it out. I'm going to tell it that for units produced in widgets, it has to be greater than or equals to 200 because we have to produce at least 200 widgets to fulfill our existing contract, all right? Then I'm going to click Add, and it's going to seem as if I just deleted everything, all right? But have faith. We already added that rule, and we're ready to set up a new rule here, all right? So now let's set up the constraint for the thingamajigs. Thingamajigs, well, the units produced, which is right here in M18, have to be less than or equals to this $700, all right? So that's it. Now, let's add another constraint where we say the cell reference here is going to be that the production cost cannot be greater than 120,000. So my total production costs are here, and they have to be less than or equals to 120,000. Let's press OK. And let's press solve. And we already have a suggested solution. So this is the window that says it actually did everything correctly. We only have to tell it to keep the solver solution if we like it and press OK. Now let's analyze what it did. As we predicted from a first glance, widgets, we're only producing the minimum necessary because they are so low margin, all right? They're so low profit. So we're producing the 200 that we have to we're contractually obligated to produce, and then the rest of our production budget is being assigned to thingamajigs, all right? And that, guys, is how you set up a solver problem. Now, this is a really, really simple solver problem. Once you get, in real life, either in real life or during your engineering course, you're going to be faced with much more complicated problems with many more variables. Now, they're really not that hard. The only hard part is that you have to make sure how to set them up, all right? There's no trick, there's no set algorithm. It's just practice, practice, practice. All right, guys, one last item I have to cover before I leave is once you go over here to solver, we paid no attention to these two. All right, the first one is this one. I really have to emphasize this little checkbox. Make unconstrained variables non-negative. All right, so that means that, that's fancy speak for making sure that the variable cells, say for example the units produced, should be non-negative, all right? Solver sometimes finds optimal solutions in which it says you have to produce minus 800 widgets. All right, yeah, that's great, solver, but it's not realistic. There's no way I can produce negative widgets, all right? So make sure that you put it in the constraints properly. Otherwise, solver is going to return negative values. And the second one, select a solving method. Well, we have here 3 different solving methods. This is beyond the scope of the video, but you can usually do no wrong with GRG nonlinear or simplex all P, all right? Now, if you want to delve further into this, I recommend you read an optimization and operations management handbook because it explains what each algorithm is going to do. Since this problem is so simple, every single algorithm is going to return the exact same solution. All right, guys? Well, that's it. Now you know how to set up a problem in Excel, solve it with Solver, and optimize your production. See you in the next video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and everything else. Do you want to be an Excel god? Our online course will turn you into an Excel master in only 90 days. Excel is the most important tool in the office, but almost nobody knows how to use it. Most people dive right into Excel with no formal training and never use the right tools. And thus, they end up delivering messy reports that are full of mistakes, and they end up hating their jobs. In reality, Excel is really simple to use and can do your job for you, if you know how to use it. But you have to pick the right place to learn from. or you'll only end up more confused with all of the different tools and functions that Excel has to offer you. So, what can you do? Our Excel course is tailor-made for you. We're going to teach you Excel, all of Excel, using real-life examples, from simple exercises to full-fledged business case studies. Take the online course and you'll be an Excel god in only 90 days. The course consists in more than 45 lessons and 15 case studies, all with their detailed solutions completely recorded in video, and you're going to be able to access them whenever you want, whatever you want. Best of all, you're going to have lifetime access to the course, and you're going to get any of the updates that we're constantly putting out for free. Even better, when you get our course, you'll have free access to our full Visual Basic and Macros course, and also to our Power BI course, all with just one single purchase. More than 3,000 students have passed through our classrooms. We've attended companies like Kodak, IBM, Cemex, HP, Continental, DB Schenker, and more. So, if you want to absolutely master Excel, make sure that you sign up now. You will become an Excel god. A to Excel.